All right, we're doing a little bit of a different type of video today. I didn't get started on the wiring mainly because I had a borderline migraine because of my allergies all week, and I just did not feel up to starting the wiring. And I know I'm going to have no trouble doing the wiring. I'm not worried about that. It's just starting it is always kind of stressful, and on top of a headache, I didn't need the stress. So I get asked a lot about how do you pick the color scheme and the exterior finishes, the interior finishes for a dollhouse. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So stay tuned and hear my thoughts. All right, the first and I think probably the most important thing to consider when you're picking out how to do your dollhouse is the intended purpose of the dollhouse. Will the dollhouse be a collector piece that is on display as an art piece, or is it going to be a playable house for a child? Those are two really important things to consider. So let me tell you what I think about both of those. All right, let's get the playable house for a child out of the way first. And I'm only going to cover that once, and that's going to be here. For a child's house that's going to be playable, go with durable. Like on this house, I may or may not have put the porch railings on if a child was playing with it, and I probably wouldn't have put any of those little fiddly rafter ends above the porch or the rafters coming off the side. I would have left those off. Leave off anything that is small enough to get broken. I may or may not have even put windows in. If I did, they probably would not have the divider bars and they wouldn't have the plastic in them. The door, same thing. I probably wouldn't have put the plastic into it. I probably wouldn't put the door, the faux glass into it. As far as exterior finishes, pick durable. I wouldn't put the shingles onto a child's house. I would paint the roof for a kid. Kids don't need super fancy. They need durable. If you have a kid that wants a green dollhouse with a purple roof, just go for it. Let their taste dictate, because it will encourage them to play with it. When they get older and when they're more apt to be able to take care of the house and they want it to grow up with them, then you can strip it back to the shell, and if you've done it right, that will be really quick, and then they can help you to put the decorations on, to wire it, to put lights in. But don't put any of that stuff in until they are old enough to take care of it, because it's just going to be frustrating for both you and the child if you put a bunch of fragile stuff in, like lights, rafter ends, and they break them off and lose them. You're going to feel bad, they're going to feel bad, and it's not going to be fun. Make it playable by making it as simple and clutter-free as possible. So that's my thoughts on kids, and that goes the same for interior and exterior. I wouldn't even put wallpaper in for a kid, I'd paint it. So let's talk about adult collector houses. All right, for the adult collector, there's a lot more factors come into play. The first thing I always ask myself when I am planning the decorating on a dollhouse is what I like to refer to as time and place. Those are really important factors, and they can limit what you do. They can cut out a lot of choices. So let's talk about this beachside bungalow. Its time and its place. It is now. Most of the things, if not all, that I've put on the channel are supposed to be from our current world, from the world around us at the moment I make them. So this house, because of that, could have been any color scheme I wanted. My theoretical place that I see this house living is the Oregon coastline. So that in and of itself limited me a little bit on color schemes, because typically when you think of beachfront houses, you're thinking grays and blues and weathered and light colors. So that is part of why I chose the color I did. But what if you're choosing a house in 1885 in, say, San Francisco? Well, you're going to need to do some research on that time and that place to see what was common. Like, you wouldn't do a Southwest adobe house if you're trying to portray 1885 San Francisco. It wouldn't go together. So you need to do some research. If you're doing a historic house, especially when placed in a very specific place, research is probably why you're doing it. It's because you love that kind of stuff. So that will help you to determine not only the color, but the type of exterior finish. So let's talk about the next thing. All right, the next thing that I think about is the style of the architecture. Now, the beachside bungalow, in my opinion, is a modified craftsman bungalow. It doesn't have all the features of a true craftsman bungalow, but it's obviously built in that style. That also can change your color scheme. Usually they were a little more basic, a little more, they weren't over the top, they weren't frou-frou-y, they weren't decorated over like a Victorian. So I would, again, it would take earthy colors. Usually you think of earthy colors when you're talking about a craftsman. You want a limited color palette as far as the number of colors. Basically, I've got gray and white, and that's how I'm going to keep the exterior is gray and white, because that would be a fitting color scheme. But what if you're doing one of the Painted Ladies in San Francisco? That's going to need bright colors. It may need a different exterior finish. Your finishes have to go with the architectural style of your house. So really take a look at your house and say, what's the style? Is it a Victorian? Is it a Southwest adobe? Is it a craftsman? Is it whatever it is? Those things can help determine what color and what finish you're going to use. The next factor is where in your house are you going to display this dollhouse? Because a dollhouse, no matter how small it is, it's still pretty big as far as art pieces to set in your house. It has to fit in. If your room is grays and greens and really mellow and neutral, and your dollhouse is bright blue, it's probably going to stick out like a sore thumb. So unless you want it to stick out, I always prefer to have my dollhouses blend in a little bit. For instance, this is gray and white. I consider that fairly neutral. My living room, where this is going to sit, is more beiges, but I didn't want a beige colored house. It's more beiges, purples, greens, those colors. So this gray will be fine in here. It will blend, it's harmonious with the rest of the colors in the room it's going in. All right, so our final thing to think about when we are deciding on a color scheme for our dollhouse is, out of those colors you've narrowed it down through our previous steps, which of those are colors you love? Don't paint it just because it's a color that is historically accurate. Pick one that you love, because you're going to be staring at this dollhouse most likely every day for a very long time. you need to love it. If you don't love it, it's not going to be a good thing. It's going to make you not happy with what you did. You'll see every mistake you made, and you'll be very just unhappy with the house. So let's talk about the inside of the dollhouse. All right, so now we're going to turn our attention to the interior of our dollhouse. What are some of the things we're going to need to plan for the interior? Well, you'll need to plan your wall treatments and how they fit into your home, and you're going to need to plan out your color scheme and how that flows in your home. So let's talk about those two things separately. All right, the color scheme in your dollhouse. Now, a dollhouse is different from our real houses in one very important way, and that is, for the most part, in a real home, you can't see all the rooms all at once. In a dollhouse, you're going to see all the rooms all at one time, so they have to coordinate. So my opinion is you pick one very limited color scheme and you emphasize different colors in that color scheme in each room, but you also carry through the colors throughout the house. I like to pick one dominant color that's going to be in every room and then maybe emphasize a different secondary color. I wouldn't pick more than 2 or 3, maybe 4 colors for a dollhouse. I'm going to try and stick to about 3 colors in this one, simply because there's only 3 rooms and I don't want to overwhelm it. I don't want to make it too busy. Some of your factors from your exterior are going to apply. Time and place. This is where you can give a good feeling for those, because different times in history we've had different types of wall treatments were more popular than others. And places. This house, like I said earlier, is going to be a house on the Oregon coast. I'm going with I think it's called coastal farmhouse theme throughout the house. It's going to be light colors. It's going to be coastal themed items in it, and I will show you later on in this video. I'm going to show you some of the things we're going to use on the interior of the house. But you need to keep it fairly consistent. Like I said, most dollhouses, you can see all the rooms at once. Some, there might be 1 or 2 hidden rooms that are accessed separately, and those are where you can have fun and do something totally off the wall if you want to. So let's talk about different types of wall treatments. All right, so the first thing I'm going to say is, with the exception of a playable house for a child, I do not recommend just painting the inside of the walls with paint and calling it done. One of the things you're going to find is it's never going to look right, because it's the MDF that this is made out of is a little better, but it's going to look too smooth. A dollhouse made of plywood, you're still going to get a feeling of that wood grain, and that wood grain is huge, and it's going to look out of scale, and it's going to make the dollhouse look kind of off. So I recommend, usually I paper everything. You can also do other techniques that are specialized. Maybe you want to do a Southwest stucco house and have the walls be the same texture inside. Maybe you want to use brick and do a brick wall. Those are things that would work really well, because you're not going to see the bare wood. Let's talk about types of paper, and for this I'm going to move the camera up on my tripod, and we're going to look at the papers I've got for this dollhouse and just my feelings in general. All right, so the first thing I'm going to say is, with the exception of a playable house for a child, I do not recommend just painting the inside of the walls with paint and calling it done. One of the things you're going to find is it's never going to look right, because it's the MDF that this is made out of is a little better, but it's going to look too smooth. A dollhouse made of plywood, you're still going to get a feeling of that wood grain, and that wood grain is huge, and it's going to look out of scale, and it's going to make the dollhouse look kind of off. So I recommend, usually I paper everything. You can also do other techniques that are specialized. Maybe you want to do a Southwest stucco house and have the walls be the same texture inside. Maybe you want to use brick and do a brick wall. Those are things that would work really well, because you're not going to see the bare wood. Let's talk about types of paper, and for this I'm going to move the camera up on my tripod, and we're going to look at the papers I've got for this dollhouse and just my feelings in general. Alright, so this is kind of an overview of the color scheme I'm going to use on the interior of the beachside bungalow. I'm not going to use all of these wallpapers, but this set of seven, I think it's seven, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wallpapers are all coordinated. They came in a pre-packaged bundle from Hobby Lobby. I found it on their online, on their website, and I ordered it. So I've got 3 sheets of each one. I'll use some of these in the dollhouse, and the rest I will use either elsewhere or maybe for some other projects for the dollhouse. I haven't decided yet. And I'll show you these up close here in a second, but I want you to see the overall look. So this white, this is the same paper that I've always used on walls that you've seen me use before. It's a lightly textured. I'll have a picture. Hopefully I'm remembering to put the picture of the label that explains what it is onto the screen right now. I'm hoping in editing I'll remember that. But this is made by Canson, and it is an artist paper. I think it's made for doing some kind of art on. But it's just lightly textured. I bought white this time. I usually go with an ivory, but I thought with these colors, a white background for the other walls would be better. These sheets come 19.5 by 25.5, I think. So I'm hoping, I bought 3 sheets of it. I'm hoping that will be enough to do the ceilings and the some of the walls. And then I'm going to wallpaper probably the entire bathroom, and then a couple of accent walls in the other 2 rooms. So, and that's kind of my approach with this dollhouse. If you're doing a Victorian dollhouse, you'd want something more ornate, more feminine maybe, more floral. But you can find dollhouse wallpaper to match pretty much any mood. Now, unless you're doing small areas, I wouldn't use scrapbook paper unless it's a really easy to match design. Wallpapers for dollhouse are made so they're easy to match in the corners. Scrapbook paper can be an issue getting it to match depending on what the repeat is on the design. You do need to be sure that your wallpaper has a design that is in scale to what you're doing to, and we'll talk about that. We've talked about scale before. I have a whole series of videos on dollhouse scale. So let me hold these papers up, show you what these look like. Like I said, I'm not sure which ones I'm going to use for sure. Love this one. In fact, I'm just going to bring you down. There. This is a stripe, kind of like this for an accent wall in the bedroom, but I'm not sure. It is a really pretty paper, and it's got all the colors. It's got the blue that I like. It's got the kind of beige. It's got white. It'll be nice. This one, I don't, whoops, this one, I don't think I'm going to use this on the walls. I'm not sure what I'm going to use it for. It's a little too much for my taste. We'll see. I might use it in the bathroom. I don't know. This one I love. It's got little sailing ships, little ship's wheels. It's really pretty. This is what sold me on the whole set. I really like this one. This will probably be the bathroom, but I'm not positive yet. Then we've got this really light stripe. Now this one I might do a wall in. I like this. And this isn't overpowering. I like the fact that it's not a really bold print. It's just a very light stripe. This one is cute, and I haven't decided if I'm going to use it or not. It's like coral, but it would make a neat accent wall, so I'm going to keep my mind open on that one. This one I am tempted to use on the front porch, but I haven't decided yet. So if I don't use it there, I'm going to come up with a project to use it for, because I love it, but I'm just not sure it's right for the porch. And then there's this beige stripe, which would make a great accent wall, or I'm not sure, I don't think I want to do a whole room in it, but for an accent wall, I think it'd be great. So let me move the camera and I'll tell you my final thoughts. All right, so I hope that you found that information useful, helpful. Maybe you learned something. Choosing your finishes for your dollhouse can seem really intimidating. I know that. It really can, but it's not. Just take your time and have fun. This is what this is all about. Do your research. If you're doing a historic home set some other time, do your research. Heck, if you're doing something futurized, you can make up the future as you go. But like I said, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it helpful. If you liked the video, push the like button. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you come subscribe, join our family. Hit that notification bell so you always know when I upload a video. Be sure and check the Facebook page and the blog post, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.